Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. I am actually irritated with the headline here because I don't think that it paints the appropriate picture. And because of that, now you're going to have however many people, whatever it is, hundreds of thousands, millions, whatever, people reading this headline and then painting veterans in a horrible way. It's amazing to me what one sentence can do and what sort of emotions it can evoke. So I'm going to read you the headline and then I'm going to dive into this a little bit. And I've already done a couple videos on the specific subject, but in a more appropriate fashion than this ridiculous outlet is doing here with their way of wording it. So with that, the headline is Spending Bill would ease access to guns for some veterans declared mentally incapable. So, what a horrible, horrible way to phrase this, because the reality is that the spending bill would not allow the VA to rip away your rights, because it's the VA. They shouldn't be allowed to rip away your rights to gun ownership if you are required to have a fiduciary to help you with your finances. Now, is there a portion of folks in there that are probably not going to be able to have a firearm? Sure. Sure, there is. But what this is doing is it's not allowing the VA to play the prosecutor, the judge, the jury, right? It's actually affording veterans their due process through a legal arm in order to decide whether or not their Second Amendment rights should be evoked. So I'm a bit irritated with the way that, what is this? The APnews.com is phrasing this because it's really painting the wrong picture. It's not easing access to guns. The veteran already has their firearm. Then you get assigned a fiduciary, and it's blocking the VA from just saying, yep, you can't have a firearm because you have a fiduciary with no due process. So it's BS the way that they're doing this. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend. I really appreciate it. The two asks, right? Hitting that thumbs up, letting the video run, that helps to put this into the hands of more. If you want to support the channel in other ways, you can become a member. It helps me to find you quicker in the comments. You can do that. Go to the home page. You will see highlighted members and a join button. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read through this and see what else they are doing to paint veterans in a bad light. And we'll go from there. So this is by Mary Clark. Can't say the last name. Jalonik. I don't really know. Jalonik, maybe? Jalonick. Mary Claire. Oh, Mary Claire. Mary Clare. Then the last name Jalonick. All right. This just came out March 8th, and I'm irritated that I saw it. All right, so let's move on. Veterans whom, let's see, I'm looking a little washed out. Let's try to shrink that up a little bit. All right. Veterans whom the government declares incapable of managing their own affairs would have easier access to firearms under spending legislation expected to be signed by President Joe Biden in the coming days. All right, so still irritated. A reversal of current law that Republicans and even some Democrats have been pushing for years. So, again, I don't think anybody said let's let the VA be the prosecutor, the judge, and the jury on whether or not somebody's Second Amendment rights. Okay, look, I get it. There's people out there that are anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment. I get it. Let's call it something else. Let's call it the First Amendment. Imagine if some department in the government gets the opportunity to say, we're taking away your First Amendment, right? Then people would be all freaked out. Oh my God, they can't take away my First Amendment. That's weird. This is just, it's automatic. I should automatically be able to always have my First Amendment. Okay, that's what the amendments are. So the Second Amendment is equally as important and precious as the First. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't really matter. So there should be a legal process in place to rip away that right. All right, so let's move on. So those lawmakers say the law requiring the Department of Veterans Affairs to report veterans declared mentally incompetent, and I don't like how they use that, because fiduciaries are in place to function the veterans' financial affairs because they are not spending their money appropriately, whatever that may look like. Of course, there's going to be people that are going to be deemed mentally incompetent in that realm, but there's also going to be people that, maybe they just got a bad spending situation and then somehow, some way they ended up getting a fiduciary, right? Maybe they have a little bit of a gambling issue. Maybe they have a family member that keeps taking their money, right? In some cases, the fiduciary is the family member taking the money, right? So, in any case, I don't like how they do that, but it is what it is. So declared mentally incompetent. If the Veterans Affairs is to report veterans that are declared mentally incompetent, and that's really not it. It's the Department of Veterans Affairs is to report veterans that have been assigned a fiduciary is the appropriate situation here, to the national background check systems, and then let's see, it says here, to the national background check system, it says punishes those who rely on benefits from the agency and may need help managing their money. Okay, so let's read that again because I kind of went off on a little tailspin there, ranting. So those lawmakers, the ones that are doing this, say that the law requiring the Department of Veterans Affairs to report veterans declared mentally incompetent to the national background check system punishes those who rely on benefits from the agency and may need help managing their money. But gun control advocates say the law is an important tool in protecting against suicides by those who have served in the military. Moving on, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat, said the change could result in thousands of mentally ill people. Wonderful. So, see, and this is what I hate because it's really just painting the wrong picture. So, Chris Murphy, this Democrat from Connecticut, senator, said the change could result in thousands of mentally ill people having increased access to guns, a death sentence for many. He posted on X, formerly known as Twitter. So, I'd love to see your comments on this. I mean, look, I don't have a fiduciary. I mean, so I don't, I don't have the I guess the boots on the ground view of this and what it feels like. But I could imagine that if I ended up being assigned a fiduciary to help manage my funds, and then all of a sudden my ability to own a firearm goes out the window, seems a bit excessive from the VA to be able to have that sort of authority. So let's move on. The spending bill provision comes as gun control advocates have scored modest wins in recent years. Congress passed a sweeping law in 2022 that would expand some background checks for people under 21 and provide new mental health services for children and schools, among other measures. While several Republicans supported the legislation, though some Democrats have supported the change in VA policy, including Senate Veterans Affairs Committee Chairman John Tester, Democrat Montana. Tester, who also sits on the Senate Appropriations Committee, Tester has been pushing to reverse the law for several years, arguing that many veterans won't collect their benefits at all because they are afraid that their guns will be taken away. And look, I agree. I know a lot of folks that will not even file a claim for, typically it's PTSD, but anything in the mental health world, for that fear. And not only that fear, but just stigma and potential job issues, that type of stuff. So I get it. But really, the VA should not have that power or authority to take away somebody's rights. That should have to go through a process. I mean, it should be seen by a judge, and a veteran should have their day in court. To put it that way. So anyway, let's move on with this. It's flat wrong that a DC bureaucrat could take away a veteran's legal right to a firearm simply because they need assistance managing their finances, said Tester, who is up for re-election this year. The spending bill would prohibit funding for the law, but still allow the agency to report people to the background check system if there was a finding by a court that the person is in danger to themselves or others. So yes, sure, they could still report, but first it has to go through the legal channels. A judge has to deem the person danger to themselves or others. Future spending bills would have to keep renewing the provision for the policy to remain permanently blocked. The Senate endorsed the language in an amendment vote last fall, 53-45, with a handful of Democrats voting in support. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, who offered the amendment, said that veterans who sacrificed to defend our Constitution shouldn't see their own rights rest on the judgment of unelected bureaucrats, the VA. Again, the VA shouldn't just go, we're going to assign you a fiduciary and now you can't own any weapons because we're going to report you. Moving on, the Department of Veterans Affairs maintains that it takes a vigorous review before reporting to the background check system, and the I'm going to call BS. They could barely get claims handled appropriately, and I'm trying to be nice. So for them to say that they are, just super solid with this is a joke. Because if they're not super solid with your claims, how are they going to be super solid with this? Before reporting to the background check system, and the department bases its decisions to appoint a fiduciary for veterans who cannot manage their own finances after looking at medical evidence or a court decree. There is also due process for the beneficiary, the agency says, including opportunities to present evidence that they are capable of managing their VA benefits. So again, what I said before was you're a veteran who's having issues with your finances, your financial affairs, whatever reasons that may be. It doesn't mean that you're completely mentally ill and you are a danger to yourself and others, okay? So I don't like how they talk one way in one section and then they talk another way in another section. Stay consistent through it, right? If you want to say that it's a certain thing, you better carry that all the way through. Don't paint it different ways depending on what you're trying to say. It's just frustrating. All right, so if the veteran is determined to be mentally incapacitated or incapable after the review, the VA is then required to notify the National Instant Criminal Background Check System as required by the Brady gun law signed in the early 1990s. The standard that is applied related to the fiduciary responsibilities is the standard that we take great care with. That has been developed over much time and is meant to address a very delicate situation, the VA secretary said last year. And I agree it's a difficult situation. And I think that difficult situation should not be in the hands of the VA. I think that if they see something that causes concern, obviously they should report it and have it go through the legal process and let the veteran have due process, right? I think that's what should happen. Let the burden be away from the VA. I mean, look, the VA secretary is saying that it's a very delicate situation. Let's remove that. In a statement on the spending bill passed by the House this week and currently pending in the Senate, the White House said it opposes the reversal of the VA policy, but that Biden will sign the overall legislation, which funds several agencies. The language was included after negotiations between the two parties as lawmakers have worked for months to avoid a government shutdown. The administration remains committed to exploring every possible pathway to keep guns out of the hands of those who shouldn't have them and ensure the safety of these individuals and their communities. the White House said in a statement. Gun control advocates said they could continue to try to prevent future legislation from expanding access to firearms. Florida Representative Maxwell Frost, a Democrat and the youngest member of Congress at 27 years old, said this week that he voted against the spending bill because he's concerned the reversal of the VA policy will result in more gun violence. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, look, I'm just one guy out here sharing information. So, Florida Representative Maxwell Frost, a Democrat and the youngest member of Congress at 27 years old, said this week that he voted against the spending bill because he's concerned the reversal of the VA policy will result in more gun violence. I don't know, right? What do you think? I'd love to hear it. Gun violence, here's a quote from Frost. Gun violence prevention is not just a priority issue. It's what got me involved in politics at 15 years old, Frost said. Senator Murphy, the leading Democrat on gun issues in the Senate and a member of the appropriations panel, said he tried to convince his colleagues to remove the provision, but was unsuccessful. But he said he thinks the gun safety movement wins more than it loses now. But this setback is evidence that we must stay vigilant, Murphy said. Maybe we let our guard down here. So that concludes it, but I don't know. Look, here's the thing. The bottom line is that some agency, any agency, pick an agency, should not have the authority or the ability to automatically, without due process, real due process, right? Not that agency going, well, I gave them due process and I figured it out and I got some evidence and I looked at things. Not that. Going to a third party, a judge, a judicial system to make that decision. No agency out there should be able to take away any one of your rights, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm maybe there's somebody out there that goes, yes, the VA should have that authority. And good. I mean, whatever, right? We all have our opinions. I'm just thinking, for me, I would not want the VA to have that authority to take away any one of my rights at any time. I would rather the VA, if they have a concern about me in any way, to push it over to the judicial system and let me have my say there and let me have my due process outside of the VA's bureaucracy, right? So that's kind of the bottom line. I'm not saying anything really more. I'd love to see what you have to say, so please share in the comments. I appreciate you for hanging on for this 18 minutes. It was quite long, and glad you hung on. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one, and remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.